The light is green.
Well, I hate to do this to you, but that's on, or this, or you can use this.
Yes. Oh, it is on. It's just not picking up my voice.
Now try.
Okay, I'll try a bit higher. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah,
Technical difficulties.
okay. Is it picking? Yeah.
That's great.
Okay. Is it? Oh, see, now is it too? No, I think it's working. It's working. Great. Perfect. Thanks.
Okay. Rabbi Golko. So questions for Rabbi or comments, please?
Sure. Thank you so much for coming. How has your experience been here at Temple Aliyah?
It's been amazing. Okay. It's been amazing. I came here thinking that this might be a really good place for me, having researched a lot, having read a lot on your website and read there's a long questionnaire that you all fill out and watch some archive videos, but you never really know until you're in the room and you actually meet people and are there in person. And what I'm looking for in this process is the right fit. I want to be somewhere where I feel like I'm a good fit with the community, a good fit with the staff and with the clergy team, and I really feel that here. I was feeling it on Friday night. I was feeling it yesterday morning. I said to the people in the Q&A yesterday that if they saw my face at the end of the service, when everyone was called up and standing in a circle here, I had this like ridiculous grin on my face because I just had this moment of realizing, looking around the circle, that I had connected with so many people who were here, and that there was something so nice about the way the community came together to stand in a circle and sing a beautiful melody that really was powerful for me. So my experience here this weekend has been amazing, getting to know all of you, spending time with Rabbi Vogel and with Cantor Stein, with Kazan Stein and Kazan Mimi, and really getting to know the team, and I feel really excited about this opportunity.
Did something stand out to you that you would like to, something you've done in the past that you would like to share with the community if you were coming to join us, a program, an activity?
Sure. So I spoke to a couple people on the search committee this morning about a project I did at Camp Ramah in the Poconos, where I have been for my entire life as a camper and a counselor and a division head. And after 12 summers there, I realized that the camp had a tefillin problem, that the camp was not really teaching tefillin well, and kids were not excited about putting tefillin on. Boys are required and girls are allowed to if they want to, but meaning no girls were actually putting on tefillin. The boys were like wearing sweatshirts so they could pretend they had tefillin on, but actually weren't. And it wasn't really being educated well enough. So I called up the director and said, will you hire me to come for 2 weeks as a scholar in residence and teach about tefillin? So I came up with programming for each different age group that would help them think about what tefillin means. So for the older kids, we did an activity where they would write on a piece of paper a message or a value or a quote that guides them, and they like taped it to their bodies and walked around the room giving each other high fives, thumbs ups if they agreed with each other's messages. And then we talked about what it feels like to wear your values on the outside and to kind of have other people be able to see what your values are, and that's one way of thinking about tefillin, that it's a way of wearing your values on the outside. And for younger kids, we made little practice tefillin for them before they're old enough to wear tefillin with like black paper, and they made little Shema scrolls to go on the inside. And I had conversations with staff about what it looks like to be a dugma, an example, a role model, and being that personal role model for kids, even if putting on tefillin isn't something that you're used to in your daily life. When you come to camp and you're that cool counselor role model for teenagers and for kids, what does it look like for you to say, I'm going to take this on for the summer so that people, so that I can be a real role model here?
Who else? Yeah, they can't hear you at home.
And how did it go?
It went really well. Part of the project was also that in advance I wrote letters to local congregations asking them to donate or let us borrow to fill in for the summer that they weren't using so that we could have extra pairs for kids and for staff to be able to try on, and even potentially to sign out for the summer if they decided then they wanted to keep putting on to fill in. And at the end of my week and a half, 2 weeks at camp, we had 27 campers and staff who signed out a pair of tefillin, who decided they wanted to keep wearing them for the rest of the summer.
Other questions?
So if you close your eyes and envision where you want to be in, say, 5 years, 5 to 10 years, what would that look like to you professionally?
So the real answer is I don't know, because I hope that in the next 5 and 10 years I keep growing and keep learning and keep adjusting what I want to do. 5 years ago, when I was starting rabbinical school, Rabbi Vogel and I realized this is something we had in common, that I did not want to work in the synagogue. I did not imagine myself as a pulpit rabbi. I thought I would work in a Hillel or at Camp Ramah in a more informal Jewish educational setting. And during my time in rabbinical school, through doing internships, I realized that actually I really did want to work in a synagogue. And that was a place of so much vibrancy and where you work with the entire life cycle. And I realized that it was the work that was the most meaningful to me. And I really changed what I saw myself doing. So I hope that in 5 years from now, my answer is different, because I hope that I've grown and learned new things. At the moment, I would say I hope that in 5 years I'm an assistant rabbi somewhere where I've really felt immersed in the community, where I love being and I'm learning and I'm growing and I'm working as part of a team. Maybe in 10 years I'm a senior rabbi, maybe, but it's so hard to think about 10 years because I hope there's so much growth for me between now and 10 years in the future that I don't know what 10 years in the future looks like.
Oops.
A lot of literature over the last couple of years about the Pew study and the future of conservative Judaism. Does it have a future? What does it mean to be a conservative Jew in today's world? Where do you see the future of Jewish life among the conservative movement, which you're a part of, over the next 10, 20 years, and what do you think it will mean to be a conservative Jew?
I asked for a hard question from you, so that's, got the hard-hitting questions now. So I think that conservative Judaism is about asking big questions. I know you all have this year-long initiative asking big questions, and I don't know how many of you are participating in it, but I really think that conservative Judaism is about asking ourselves the hard questions, because it's about navigating how we live in the modern world, how we live in 2019 with all the values of our American society, and live authentic Jewish lives, like real, serious, deep, connected, meaningful, authentic Jewish lives. And to me, conservative Judaism is having gotten to know Orthodox Jews and Reform Jews and learned about their philosophies and ideologies and way of life. I have found that for me, and I think that this is something I'm able to communicate to others, that conservative Judaism is a really authentic way of living a modern and yet still deeply connected Jewish life. I think it means thinking about Shabbat and what are the values behind Shabbat, and truthfully, I think the values behind Shabbat are really connected to our modern values. When I talk to other people my age and say, yeah, on Friday nights I like to have dinner where we have a glass of wine and I'm not using my cell phone and we're just really connecting with the people in the room, everyone's like, that's amazing, sign me up. And I think there are ways I think that's what conservative Judaism is about, finding the ways that our Jewish tradition actually is totally in line with the values of the world we're living in, and then navigating those moments when the values come into conflict with one another and having those hard conversations.
First, I want to say thank you for spending the weekend with us here. And can you tell all of us how you envision, besides showing up for services, how you envision becoming a part of our community? What you would do to become one of us?
So when I arrived this morning to meet with the search committee, everyone asked me if I wanted a cup of coffee. And I said, I actually don't drink coffee, but I drink tea. But the way I envision getting to know a community is through coffee, or maybe for me, tea, and getting to know people individually on a one-on-one basis, and inviting people out for coffee or tea or ice cream or whatever it happens to be, and actually getting to know people and asking people what they're passionate about and what interests them, what they like about Temple Aliyah, and what maybe they think needs to change, and learning from people. Because I think you all are the experts on this community. I've been here for less than 3 days. You know what this community is about, and I want to learn from all the people who are here and form those one-on-one relationships and connections. So I think it is about showing up to services, being here, sharing of myself, being willing to be vulnerable with you all and talk about my life with you all, and also wanting to know your story, and your story before you came to Temple Aliyah, and your story here, and where you see yourself in the future, like really getting to know each of you individually. I think for me, that's how I feel connected to community, when I can look around a room, like I said about the circle at the end of services yesterday, when I can look around a room and feel like we've connected and we've had a conversation and I know what's going on in your life and I know about your family, and really feeling like I have those personal relationships.
Coming around.
We have 5 seconds to come up with a question now.
You have a question?
You're a really super vibrant, wonderful sounding shul where you're an intern. Is there a chunk of people that are not coming? Is there like a group that's missing that you're doing outreach to, or is it just wonderfully vibrant and consistently attended?
It's a very vibrant place. I do think they, like basically every, not even just conservative, like every synagogue in the country, are having trouble getting people in their 20s and 30s to come in. They're starting to do a better job at getting people in their 30s who, whether they have young families or not, more programming. The assistant rabbi, and I've helped with that a little bit, helping to get people in their 30s in the door, but we're not getting so many people in their 20s. We have people up through age 18, and then we really have a gap between 18 and 30, I would say. And I think I don't think that's unique there. I think that's fairly common throughout synagogues in America. I think it's hard to get that demographic in the door. But I think it's something that I have helped them start to think about, and that they're definitely thinking about on their own as well. And I think that's an issue that I imagine Temple Aliyah may face. But that I think really everywhere that all the congregations are facing that as well.
When you say that's something you've helped to address with them, in what ways have you addressed it?
So at JTS, I've been part of a Millennial Engagement Fellowship. And as part of that fellowship, I have taught little kind of informal Jewish study sessions throughout New York City, whether it's in people's homes or just in casual environments with low barriers to entry. And as part of this fellowship, I was sent to Camp 999, which is a Memorial Day weekend camp for young adults. Often unaffiliated, many of them are not synagogue members, not synagogue goers, but people who, like, the idea of doing color war was exciting, so they wanted to come for a Jewish camping experience. But they're not necessarily there for the Jewish pieces of it. And I went as the Jewish educator. And I did sessions like Getting Angry with God, where there was text, and we talked about text, but it was really a conversation about what happens in people's lives that causes us to get angry with God. And I did a session on Judaism and personal growth. And we talked about, there's some text. We talked about the Jewish concept of tshuva, of turning towards our better selves, that we talk about at the high holidays. But there was also journaling and reflection and conversation. And at the end of this long weekend camp, there were a bunch of people who'd come to some of my sessions and wanted to stay in conversation with me about this and wanted to find other ways of connecting. So I invited them to start coming to some of the 20s and 30s programming at Park Avenue. And I said, I'll text you before the event so you'll know what time it is. And if you don't know what to wear, I'll tell you what I'm going to wear, and you'll decide. I think part of it is about lowering barriers to entry. So when we're able to go out and find people who actually might have more of an interest than they think they have in being part of a Jewish community, kind of sparking their interest and then figuring out ways to bring them in. I'll repeat it. You say it. Okay, so the question is about the age range. You said 17 to 25 or so, but 17 to 25, who are the culture of people in that age range often is very focused on technology, whether it's gaming or it's using their cell phones, it's texting, it's social media, and how do we draw those people in when what it means to be Jewish might actually be different than their culture? Did I get that exactly right? So I think that instead of fighting against their culture, it might actually serve us better to try to work with their culture. And instead of saying, no, don't use social media, don't use your phones, let's go to synagogue instead, it actually might serve us better to try to use their modes of communication, use their technology. I think, putting aside Shabbat, at other times, there's no reason that cell phones couldn't actually be used as part of an educational program. There's technology where you can ask a question and have people text in their answers and have them come up on a board behind you. And that might be a more interesting way for people in that age range to participate in a conversation than raising their hand in a more traditional way and saying what they have to say. Text it in. Use an emoji when you text it in. Text an emoji to the board that tells us how you feel about God right now, whatever it is. Like, I think we have to find ways of actually working with them. And the same goes for social media. When there are events that are geared towards people in the 17 to 25, or I would even maybe expand that younger and older range, like let's put it on Instagram. Let's get those people to connect in that way. I don't know if Temple Aliyah has an Instagram account, but like maybe we should. That could be a good option. And I think the answer ultimately, like I've said a couple times, is not to work against the culture, but it's to work with it. Any other questions? Sure. Kind of closing thoughts. So I want to tell you all how much I've loved being here this weekend and getting to know all of you and seeing you here, whether some of you were here on Friday night, some of you were here yesterday morning, some of you were here and in the Talmud class in different ways that I've participated in the community. And it's been such a pleasure to get to know all of you. And I know it's only been a couple of days, but I feel very connected to a lot of you in this room and to this community. And I have been feeling, I know I said this as an answer to someone's question earlier, like I really feel that this is a community that's a good fit for me. And I have so enjoyed my weekend here. And so much of it is about the individual people in this room, but it's also about a feeling. And like I said before, you can only learn so much from a website and from recordings and a written questionnaire. You have to actually be there to experience it and feel it. And having been here now, I'm leaving this weekend and with a real sense of excitement about this opportunity.